So, you want to do a villain voice for a tabletop game. Now, obviously, if this was me, like, literally 3 months ago, I would have been like, oh, this is for only D&D purposes. But, yeah, about that. Now, okay, yeah, OGL, it's all safe or whatever, but I am not so comfortable being a content creator after that nearly happened. And also, just in general, I like to homebrew the shit out of systems all the time, even use different systems and collide them together, just because, hey, that's fun for me to do, and I'd like to try out new things. So, likewise, I don't want to restrict this to only D&D players. I like to actually do something that would probably fit in any tabletop-like RPG, regardless of whatever you're doing it for. Now, I'm not going to make this preface as long as the first video I did about Renesco from the Talking Heads mod, I promise. We're going to dive right into it. Tip number 1, the setting. The setting matters hugely upon the villain, especially, because, well, the setting and the villain are should be one and the same. What I mean by that is, simply put, the setting always has to be a call to action for any protagonist or any story involving, well, a conflict, to have the villain obviously host the conflict, but for the setting to welcome that conflict. So obviously, let's say Elder Scrolls. What's the villain of Skyrim? Well, if you said the Thalmor, I honestly would agree with you, and that's based, but fuck you. You're just trying to be, super edgy with that take, and everyone knows that anyway. It's Alduin. It's the dragon. It's the big black dragon at the beginning of the game. Skyrim's setting is quite literally, dragons have come back from unknown reasons, possibly related to a civil war or a prophecy, and because of that, big bad guy, dragon dude, has come back and is gonna eat the world. Oh no! Boom. Simple 1-2 punch. It's a fantasy, medieval, with the biggest mascot of fantasy, dragons. Now, that's cool and all, but how the fuck are you gonna make a voice for something like that? Tip number 2, the profile. Now, I'm calling it the profile, and I'm not calling it anything else because it's gonna be a combination of different techniques I have seen other much more talented voice actors, impressionists, and just in general great actors do, and I will link them all about each technique. I'm gonna list in the description, but basically, you're going to have a combination that I like to use just in terms of how I do it at the table. The first one is the pizza slice method, and the pizza slice method is used by this guy, which is going to be pointed on the screen right here. I'm very terrible at names, so I'm not even going to say the name audibly. Please look at the screen if you're looking away. Please look at the screen if you're looking away. Please look at the screen if you're looking away. Please look at the screen if you're looking away! Now, the pizza slice method is kind of like a grid where it only focuses on the area of the eyes, the nose, and the lips. Now, the nose has nothing to do with it, it's just in the way. It's more so the way that a person will talk and their mannerisms with their eyes and their mouth. So, for example, think about your typical George Bush impression. Obviously, the eyes are kind of going to squint up, and then because they're going to squint up, you're going to start realizing that you're moving with your lips a little bit. Now, obviously, this is not even George Bush. This is just me squinting my eyes, and this is a natural voice that's already kind of being weirdly modified because I'm just squinting my eyes, and I'm talking a weird way. So because of that, whenever you have, let's say, I don't know, a cool reference of your villain or an NPC or whatever you're doing, you have an idea in your head of what the character looks like, even if it's, say, a reference of another character or celebrity or a real-life person that you may be thinking of. You could already remember the key features of the way that their eyes move, their eyebrows shape the face, and the lips, and how they always have the lips moving around. So what makes a villain iconic is first the way they talk. So, say you're at a physical table and you're obviously trying to bring up an act, really have fun with the way you profile your character's face as that villain. Is your villain the typical, I put my eye down forward and lean my head, so this is kind of more of the intensity? Or do you want your villain to be a lot more relaxed and nonchalant? Maybe he just kind of, has his eyebrows surfing with the waves. And then let's say you want to put a little bit of a weird old man voice on there, just like, I'm talking in a weird way. You're going to start to realize then, holy shit, I'm fucking Owen Wilson? Tip number 3. This is actually going to be a combination of many terminology, all fit in tip number 3, because it's all given by this video, by this amazing YouTuber. Yes, it's a really sus video. Thank you, Scarlet Brides, but if it wasn't for this, I wouldn't have known any of these terms, so fuck it. There's resonance, accent, intonation, vocal weight, and pitch. Now, I'm going to be really awful at explaining it, so I might take clips from this video without just hodgepodging it too much to where I'm basically stealing another YouTuber's video for mine. But when I do, it's because I absolutely just cannot, to the best of my ability, say things in better words than this guy. So if you are interested, and if, you know, you're not an insecure bitch, watch the video. So I'm going to compound the first one, which is just to get out of the way, resonance, and I'm going to use my definitions followed by a clip from that video to better explain it, in case my definition or the definitions I found to better explain it from the internet doesn't do you justice. Resonance. Voices that have caverns when people talk. So when a high pitch or a low pitch voice speaks, it actually changes the structure per se of how a voice sounds. Examples. Do a Kermit-like voice versus, say, a Rick and Morty voice. You'll notice the way you do the voice in your throat or muscles is very different.
So if you start speaking like this and then go into a really much more high-pitched voice,
you'll notice that actually what you're doing is you're changing the way you speak because of the way you're speaking. In short, people with high-pitched voices are going to be speaking differently than people that speak with a low-pitched voice.
When you talk like this, you notice the way you're speaking is very different than if you talk like this,
or if you talk like this. Now, the rest of these terms are very self-explanatory, so I'm just going to go literally fast as I can. Accent intonation. Now, what the fuck are you doing here trying to do a North Dublin accent? You don't even know how to speak through the bottom of your teeth after you speak through the roof of your mouth. And even if you did, how the fuck are you gonna act like you could even say certain words? Like how we say Norse? It's Norse. How you say tees, toes, dem? Listen to how I just said tees, toes, dem. And on another note, if you was trying to do a Bostonian accent, how the fuck are you gonna even try to get there act like you from North Boston, huh? You fucking geek, you absolute buffoon. You think you could trick me? You come in here for 1 week and that we wouldn't torch your ass as soon as you fucking start speaking like that out the side of your mouth? That is intonation and accent. And obviously with the North Dublin accent, that's specifically a Irish regional accent that you could probably learn from this video of this amazing guy who actually has family with actual North Dublin accents. So even if mine's shit still, the techniques and practices I showcased there is the building blocks for how to do a proper accent for whatever character you're thinking of, especially for a villain. Vocal weight. Now, vocal weight is pretty obvious. It's, if you think of the term vocal and weight, it's very literal because how I'm speaking, it's like, oh, you know, it's whatever. But if I was to speak like this, you start to notice, wait a minute, this is a weird cinematic voice, but yet there's a little bit of more weight to it. But if I change my voice to more of this, you start to notice just a random deepness, weight to it. You have to push into it. If I took my normal voice and just pushed into my normal voice, and I just started talking like this the whole time, you would kind of end up thinking that I have problems with you, and I probably do. Pitch. Pitch is a very obvious one. It's literally like how high or low your voice goes from your normal range. So, you know, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, to do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, you know, you get the fucking point. So, that said, I see a couple good techniques that I think I'm just too pea-brained to explain. So I'm just going to take some clips from one of the channels I mentioned earlier, one of the people. And for pitch, I would just follow this advice here because it's pretty good.
So VR Chapman explained it. It's like a ladder, okay? You're going to go upwards in the ladder and go 1 pitch, 2 pitch, 3 pitch. So it's pitch. Learn pitch. I learned it by doing a method I call the meow method. I go meow, 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 meow.
You know, you get the fucking point.
You could do this also by going
This is a type of higher voice, right? This is a pitch that's higher. We're not in falsetto. We don't want to go in falsetto because if we go in falsetto, we'll start to sound like Mickey Mouse.
oh, you're there.
You know, you get the fucking point. And yeah, I'll just move on. Tip 3. Executing the character. So, to execute the character that you want to voice, say you want an exact idea of the character. You already thought of the profile with like the pizza slice method. You thought about vocal weights and intonation with accent and whatever. Now it's to actually execute the villain and how they're introduced and how badass or conniving or jealous, envious, whatever terminology. You're going to want to pull from tip 1 and execute it with backstory, reason, motive, because villains, to kind of put it bluntly, are like the heroes of their own story, whereas the heroes are the villains in their story. What I mean is, simply put, you can't have a villain that is only existing in its own world, in their own mind, if all they only react and do is for the player or the character, the protagonist. You need a villain that does its own thing, that does whatever it wants because of its own goals, priorities, and it clashes thematically with the protagonist and the player. Make your villain as sympathetic, relatable as you want. That's usually the best that I would recommend, because villains that are hard to debate in terms of like how they are as a villain, to me, is the best. But if you want to just make the classic I'm evil for being evil, I can't really help you then, besides just do what you think is a typical Sunday cartoon villain voice, and that's it. Sadly, due to the length of this video already, I'm going to only show one archetype of a villain I have put in one of my original tabletop campaigns. Primarily, I've used D&D for this campaign module, but it is pretty usable for obviously every other setting that isn't typical fantasy, as I like to mix genres together of different aspects. So you're going to start to realize once I describe the setting to then the character and the motivations and how they act, that you could put this in whatever you want. And that would be Lord ASHIL from DEUS, a D&D world where gods and their existences has actually caused mortal suffering for the majority, as now the world is suffering from a barren apocalyptic wasteland of deities killing each other, realms bleeding into the material, diseases spread everywhere, with constant apocalyptic hordes pouring through and just wiping out topside living of any civilization that was once there. This has actually forced a majority of any wasteland survivors for any civilization to live underground, and thus an underworld where mostly drow, dark elf, dwarves, gnomes, and other subterranean races thrive, whereas the topside soil living races forced under are struggling in poverty, creating vast tensions that have been going on for 5 years up until the point of the campaign where it starts.
Lord ASHIL.
Lord ASHIL is a male 6'2" human brunette with dark greasy hair to his shoulders, an alchemically enchanted cape with a dark cloak noble attire with ebony daggers, and he happens to be the noble owner of an underground asylum aptly named ASHIL Asylum. There, the players, to uncover a conspiracy involving a cabal known as the Fist of Oni, find Lord ASHIL's involvement with brainwashing a bunch of patients there that otherwise are criminally insane, dangerous young men put there in the institution as kind of a loophole to escape the judicial system of a dwarven underground city. Here, I'm going to be playing a couple of audio tapes to kind of showcase the sleazy, disgusting act that ASHIL makes throughout his asylum, as well as in general, the different voices and how it kind of bounces off of him. Now, for disclaimer, everything in this series of audio tapes is done by me. All the voices are me. All the effects are me. There's no one else doing these voices but me. This is a good showcase of what to give to your players at the tabletop campaigns that you do as a great alternative for how to introduce information about the villains that you want them to start to seethe about, to start to loathe, to start to fear, or to even just to start to wonder. So here we go now.
Dr. ASHIL, overseeing patient 616, interview number 2. Patient 616 has recently been restrained and operating now on a full set of sedatives. The prescription we have yet to disclose as of documentation. This is simply an experiment as a comparison to the last interview where patient 616 was a little bit hostile. So, patient 616, how do you feel? Why am I in a white room? Because you did something to piss some people off in everyday society and you ended up here, a threat to yourself and others. At least many claim. But here's the weird part about you, kid. Before I bought this place outright, you were already a patient. Your commission and the reasons why, poof, gone. Nobody signed it. And if they did, we can't find it. So I want you to go through some not so great memories. Can you do that? I mean, I could just read the memories for you, but I would prefer if there's anything that your mind suppressed to come out.
Suppress? Like I didn't want to remember it.
Exactly.
What is the beeping?
Oh,
What is that?
don't worry about that, kid. That's gonna help you get your head straight about it, because I know how much it turns you into a raging beast. And it's a little bit annoying, I gotta admit. But if you just keep focus, tune it out, all those little abrupt noises you hear, just think about why you're here, who put you here, why, what led to it.
Fergus.
So that right there is a good example of Lord Ashil brainwashing a patient into divulging sensitive information for purposes that obviously I'm not going to spoil or even have to go into a whole 20-minute rant about the lore and the whole storyline. But you get the point. Big bad dude is doing weird, crazy stuff to an asylum, brainwashing people and having them divulge things that will benefit his cabal of other bad guys. Another good example of Lord Ashil and his sleazy tactics is when a doctor that actually was overseeing the patient he just interviewed for his own nefarious, super bad guy ways, confronts Lord Ashil about literally brainwashing a patient of that doctor's, and this is kind of how it goes.
Excuse me, Ashil. Huh? Ashil! What? I saw that tape that you just recorded. What? Hey, Dr. Neville. Who's in charge around here? That shouldn't matter. I was still overseeing the patient, and what you did was behind PED, which is the Psionic Ethics Department. We have literally just committed a breach of not only procedure, but a breach of basic human rights. Okay, listen to me, and listen to me very carefully, all right, boy? I own this. I bought it. You work for me. What I did, I own the PED. I am the ethics department. Okay? What do you think they listen to? Me. I installed it for me. And if I decide that such matters should be approved, guess who has the ability to override any approval or rejection? Me. Now, I don't know if you know this, but you should have noticed that I have a lot of people that really are looking in to our research and our development, our care for these patients. Ain't that right, Dr. Neville? No, that's not right. What? When I was hired to do this job, you promised that what we were doing was to go by the ethics guideline. And what you did in one fell swoop, taking something behind my back without even me writing approval and my permission slip. What do you see around you right now? Yeah. As all things should be known, we don't live in a society of taxes and repercussions on the big boys. It's quite the opposite, actually. Look, Neville, we need to do research because we need to better the minds of a world-torn population. These people are all traumatized, all in pain, and all suffering. Would you not agree, Dr. Neville? So if I decide that I might need to rush something by you, that I might need to do something by you for the sake, the betterment of a society, you're gonna let me.
So I think you get the point of the voice and how I do the voice. It's basically kind of like your typical American Boston Italian-like accent, but more villainous. And with the flair of rich, noble, elite owning an asylum, of brainwashing patients into super soldiers or something like that for a cabal. What is the motivation? Well, in one of the tapes where he indoctrinates patients into full-on members for the cabal, he actually explains his motives and what his cabal are even up to right here.
I like the cut of your jib already. I'll keep it short, sweet, as I do with everyone else. We're basically part of a counter to a Vergus monster man. You know, that autocrat piece of shit. Yeah, well, let's just say he not only just pissed off a bunch of people before this Ragnarok, he actually pissed off the gods, the balance of things. Now, I'm not asking you to take your swords and valor to an angel, a devil, a demon, anything. On the contrary, we actually want you to keep out those motherfuckers, because we know that the material world belongs to those of the material. But Vergus and his little boys seem to disagree. At least they disagree with the fundamental of balance. They want to go and welcome the chaos of every bullshit and manure to ever throw in the face of mortality, just because it is quote-unquote freedom, more than it is having a staunch group of protectors that simply want to keep the world that we live in normal.
So yeah, Lord Ashil is actually a part of basically a cosmic police force that goes about trying to maintain the balance of the world that obviously has fell to shit. And because of that, Lord Ashil is having to play hide and seek with his cabal, the Fist of Oni, to stop an otherwise mad autocrat, or less fancier words, dictator, from leading the world further into chaos and unrest, with realms bleeding into the material. This is a classic question of, does the ends justify the means? Because obviously Lord Ashil and the cosmic police that he's a part of are brainwashing literal patients from an asylum into their ranks to stop a dictator. That's where the moral gray comes in, and that's where the villain that is this kind of mafioso accented dude that's just a noble of an asylum becomes a little more interesting in terms of how to make the players feel conflicted. Obviously in the campaign, how this is executed is, well, yeah, they're conflicted. Especially with the fact that the quest that they even got to stop this cabal was given by the autocrat, Vergus the Monster Man, which is the sole proprietor, owner of a whole civilization underground where all the players start at level 1 and then meet this political figure to help them on their quest to stop this evil, spooky cabal that otherwise the players thought were just a bunch of terrorists. Until this point in the story where, oh, actually, they're not? And that is just one of the few ways you can make a villain memorable with a good voice. Obviously, you don't have to do what I do or even do the format of how I do it. That's just for you to play around, make up your own characters and voice, and just wing it. Just go from there, whatever your character, your villain is supposed to be. That said, if you would like to know what inspiration you should take from to make villains, that might be a separate video that I might make if you guys already appreciate and like this video. So if this video is already somewhat helpful for you guys, make sure to say so in the comments. Or if you think this is a load of crap, explain why in the comments, because, you know, I want to help people. And if I'm bad at helping people, I need you to help me be good at helping people. Even if it's like, oh, you're cringe, stop. I'm not going to stop, but I mean, that's a good suggestion to give me. So yeah, let's just, you know, put that, just say it. I don't mind it. But yeah, Thank you guys for watching this video. It's been an amazing time making this video, and I hope you really do enjoy it. As always, this is Crimson Gray, hoping that you had a good day. And special shout out to the following people I'm going to just display on the screen. Obviously, my editors, the people that have helped me with this, and of course, the background music, as always, is by my amazing producers, which are the following: Relive Reactions, God Doesn't Cry, and Hales, which on the screen you will see all of where you can find their music and all of the links in the description, as well as a pinned comment. That said, have a great day. I'll see you later.